Hello, everyone. Well, it's just been one of those weeks. One of those weeks where um, things go wrong and nothing seems to go right. Um, by the way, don't you just love people who complain about people who complain? Don't you just love those people doesn't that get on your last nerve? Isn't that annoying? People who complain, almost endlessly complain about other people who complain because they think that other people should not be complaining. They should be doing the complaining. They get to do the complaining. No one else gets to do the complaining. End of story. Um, they're hypocrites, right? They're hypocrites for complaining about people who complain. Give it a rest already. That makes them hypocrites. It's too sad. It's too sad that people complain about people who complain. I certainly don't have any complaints about people who complain. Complain away. Complain as much as you want. And I welcome your complaints. I welcome your complaints. I would never complain about somebody complaining. Somebody somebody thought I was complaining too much and that I complain about everything and it was a terrible way to live my life and that I should stop complaining. Um, but there's a lot to complain about. We'll stick to the big stuff, the big things, and ignore the small things. We won't sweat the small stuff. We'll stick to big issues. I promise I'll always bring you big issues. So, what am I going to complain about today? Yeah, I'm going to complain today. And there's plenty to complain about. Situation in Ukraine. They're not telling us what's going on in Ukraine right now. Kind of keeping that a secret, but you can bet there's more bombings and more human rights abuses and more torture and more mass graves in Ukraine. Because that's what we've come to expect, right? We've come to expect bombings and mass graves and torture and human rights abuses from Russia in the Ukraine. Well, why is all this going on? Why? Why would the Russians do this? Why? Well, it's because Zelensky just a couple weeks ago, he said that he was still open to peace talks. But then he followed up saying that he was open to peace talks by saying outright, I will never, ever yield eastern Ukraine, the Donbass region. I will never give up the Donbass region, and I will never yield. I won't give up eastern Ukraine. I won't give up southern Ukraine. I'm going to defend it to the death. And because he said that, that was the one thing Russia wanted. Russia wanted the Donbass region. All of this could have ended peacefully if they had given the Donbass region and southern Ukraine to the Russians. And the Russians have the power to keep this war going. Sorry, folks, but they do. They have the power to keep this war going, and there's nothing really that can stop them. Okay? There's nothing, and they're not going to stop. They're not going to stop because they have Putin as a leader, and they're not going to stop for anything. Even if Putin were gone tomorrow, they would continue his invasion. They would carry on in his place. And so we know that the war is going to end badly for both sides, for Ukraine and Russia. So what is the US's solution? What could possibly be our solution to the invasion of Ukraine? Let's give them weapons, and more weapons. Yes, the US and the military are sending tons and tons of high tech weapons to to Ukraine. And you know that some of those weapons will go undetonated, and that the Russians will be able to steal our technology. That's a major issue. It's not a light issue. When Russians steal our technology, they're going to conquer parts of Ukraine where these high-tech weapons and high-tech toys have been deployed. And when they get there, when they get to those regions, they will scoop up all of those high-tech goodies and send them to their scientists to study how these weapons are made. And then they can make copycats, duplicates, like they've done in the past, duplicating Western technology. That's what they do best, is duplicate. So the Russians are going to steal our technology, first of all. That's number one. They're going to steal our technology. That's number one. Number two, number one and number two, right? That's Meridra. It can never be very good. They're going to kill each other. That's what weapons do. Weapons are meant for one purpose and one purpose alone. And it doesn't matter who the good guys are. There are no good guys in a war. They're going to use these weapons to kill Russians, and the Russians are going to be killing them back, and they're just going to kill each other. They're going to kill each other. It's just going to be a mass grave. Ukraine will become a mass grave of Ukrainian and Russian soldiers. They're going to demolish each other. They're going to kill each other. They're not going to rest until their real or perceived enemy is completely defeated and completely demolished. So Russia and Ukraine Ukraine is going to use those weapons, and they are going to kill Russians. And the Russians will kill them back. And this is Russia's Vietnam, okay? This is like the U.S. invading Vietnam. This is Russia's Vietnam, okay? It's going to end in scandal and disgrace for them, and there will be sanctions for a long time, and their people will suffer greatly because of Putin's world-conquering ambitions. And now Putin is using this sending of the weapons. This is number 3. He's using the sending of the weapons by the West and by the U.S. as an excuse to start a nuclear war. And it could happen any moment now, folks. Any day now he could decide to launch his weapons. He promised a lightning-fast strike against Western nations or any nation that interferes with the invasion of the Ukraine by Russia. They promised that if any country intervenes and sends weapons, like the U.S. did, to the Ukraine to interfere with them taking over Ukraine, then they will attack, and they'll have a lightning-fast strike against those countries. He didn't mention nuclear war, but his advisor, one of the Russian advisors to Vladimir Putin, did mention nuclear war and said that nuclear war is a very strong possibility at this point. So they are all no holds barred going after Ukraine. They don't care what the consequences are for their own people. They just want Ukraine for whatever reason. Probably because it's access to the sea, and they have ambitions of world domination by dominating the seas. They want a passage to the sea because Russia is landlocked. And so now we're under the gun. We're under the gun, and people are complimenting Biden for help aiding in the release of Trevor Reed. And both sides shook hands, and they were grateful that Trevor Reed was brought home. Biden's getting all the credit, okay? Like, he's such a nice guy. He's such a caring, kind human being. Like what he did to the Americans that are stuck now in Afghanistan under the Taliban, right? Afghanistan, he totally botched it. Totally, total fiasco, total disaster was Afghanistan. And now he's doing the same thing with Ukraine. He's using his brilliant mind to figure out what can we do to preserve democracy in Ukraine. I know, let's send a bunch of weapons. Let's send as many weapons as we possibly can because they're asking for weapons. And it could end tomorrow if they would just yield and give up the Donbass region. Not a pretty sight. Not pretty at all. This is not a little tiny red speck, okay? This is a huge, humongous, gigantic error in judgment to send weapons to Ukraine. And they're going to kill each other. And that's what we know, that they're going to kill each other. Even if they don't kill us, which they're threatening to do now, they're going to kill each other. And this is so sad. This is such a sad outcome for the Ukrainian people. I wish that they were free, but U.S. government, including Biden, decided a long time ago during the Cold War, at the very end of the Cold War, when Russia was about to be liberated from the USSR, when they changed their regime. Right at that point, the U.S. promised that NATO would not expand into the Ukraine. They promised this to set Russia's mind at ease because they were very frightened of NATO. They still consider NATO their enemy. Why? I don't know why they consider NATO their enemy. They could have even joined NATO if they'd wanted to. But Russia considers NATO their enemy, and they really wanted the NATO to stay out of the Ukraine so they would have a little breathing space. Well, now Putin has used that as an excuse to invade Ukraine and take it over. He's used it as an excuse to make Ukraine less free. But we decided long ago to sacrifice the Ukraine, because if they had been a member of NATO to begin with, they would have been protected from Russia. And they would have had a guarantee. Then we would have sent fighter jets in, and Russia couldn't complain at all because they would have been a member of NATO. We sacrificed Ukraine. And then Putin, the opportunist, took advantage of that to invade the Ukraine and to take it for himself. And now the sanctions, the weapons, all of the things we're doing to Russia because they invaded the Ukraine, and the things that we're doing to the Ukrainian people, it's just sad. It's really sad. And there are people who aren't as fond of democracy as they are of their homeland and of their people and their nation. And they might not mind living under Russian rule. They might not mind living under Russian rule. Russians wouldn't be killing them and sending them to mass graves if Russia were in charge of the Ukraine. That's what they want. They want to conquer Ukraine. And they want to take advantage of... The Russians want to take advantage of the fact that Ukraine was never a member of NATO and never affiliated with NATO. They see Ukraine as their property and fair game. And they'll do nothing, they'll stop at nothing to get the Ukraine. Even if it's, we in Vietnam were pretty ruthless, but we were still a democracy. And people were talking about Vietnam and saying how Vietnam was a disaster and complaining, Because nothing changes in this world unless you complain, right? The media were complaining about the war in Vietnam, and then the war in Vietnam ended because of the complaining. And so then Russia invades Ukraine, and Russia invading Ukraine, that's another Vietnam, right? But Russia isn't free. The media isn't free to speak. So Russia has free reign to be as ruthless as they want to be, and Putin has the free reign to tell his people whatever he feels like about the invasion, and claim it's not a war. It's not a war. Like, did you know Vietnam wasn't a war? No, it was a military action. Well, Putin's following in our footsteps and saying, this isn't a war, this is just an incursion, or whatever he said about it, and can't translate Russian exactly. So, yeah, we should not send any weapons to Ukraine, because the sooner they surrender, the sooner the killing will stop. And the sooner this whole war will be over and we won't be under the threat of nuclear war anymore. But Biden won't listen. Just like he did in Afghanistan, how he botched Afghanistan, now he's botching Ukraine. And it costs us our lives. It costs millions, billions of lives. Hang in the balance. Billions of lives are at stake. Because you know that if China sees Russia make war on the West, China will join in too. And they will attack India, which they want to claim. They want to claim they have ambitions. China has ambitions of conquest and satellite, make India a property of China. They want that land. They want India, and so, and they want, obviously they want Hong Kong and they want Taiwan, but they want India, and so they would invade. They would start bombing India with nuclear weapons if they saw Russia bomb the West. And they would work together in cooperation with each other. They already vowed that if one got into a war, that they would support that war 100%. An unholy alliance of Russia and China. As far as our government goes, I'll just be honest with you. I didn't vote for Biden. I He's not my candidate. I gave him a chance. He had a chance to prove himself, and he flubbed it. He flubbed it completely. So he messed over Afghanistan. He's messing over Ukraine, and then he's messing over the U.S. because Russia is threatening nuclear war against us. And it could be any moment, folks, any day now, any moment now, Russia could attack. And I'm just telling you right now, it's not going to be pretty. All of us should speak out. All of us should complain. All of us should raise our voices before it's too late. This isn't a simple thing like Y2K where people were panicking. This is real. This is real, folks. It's not a Y2K situation. This is real stuff, real life, real threat. And just imagining that everything will be fine. Are things fine in Ukraine? Are people there happy? Or are they dying and bleeding and running for their lives? If it's bad in Ukraine, it can be bad here too. All Russia would have to do decide to use nuclear weapons in their fight against Ukraine, and it would all be over. Have nuclear war and nuclear winter. And it's just so sad. It's the saddest thing. So I'm asking you all to raise your voices in protest. Make some videos raising your voices in protest of, like, the Democrats pretend to be the party of pacifism. Remember this? They were the ones planting flowers and guns during the Vietnam era. The Democrats claim to be the party of peace and the party of pacifism. They aren't anymore. No, they aren't anymore, because Biden is sending guns and weapons and all sorts of weapons of mass destruction to Ukraine to destroy the Russian army. And like I said, they're going to steal our technology. They're not going to back down. And they could attack us. They're threatening us with nuclear war. So that's it. Raise your voices while you still can. Speak out. And the next time we meet, the next time I see you, it will be the Festival of the Mother. And I sure hope during the Festival of the Mother that we'll have a peaceful Festival of the Mother, and I get to see that another holiday through in peace. I'm Sarah Jane Alphawolf signing off. All of you, speak out, raise your voices now, complain about the war in Ukraine and the sending of weapons to prolong the war and bloody everyone in Ukraine.